So I've been hearing about the resurgence of Water Street in Henderson for years. And as an infrequent visitor, I gotta say that new construction and business there, it seemed to kind of ebb and flow, but a real vibrancy, well, it was a little elusive. Boy, was I wrong. Today on CityCast Las Vegas, I talk with my co-host Sarah Lohman. Not only is she a resident of Old Town Henderson, but she is a super fan and an excellent tour guide. She recently led the whole CityCast team through the redeveloped neighborhood, and what's popping up? Well, it's going to surprise you. It's Tuesday, January 7th. I'm Dayvid Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Sarah, Water Street has definitely evolved over the years, and it seems to be right now in a real era of growth. New shops, restaurants, they're poking up between bars and other establishments that have been there for years. Can you give us a short history of that district?
Yeah, definitely. It's a really fun mix of like preservation and new build and new businesses. And, I'm sort of fascinated because, as you know, that I'm a newer person here to Vegas, and the Water Street that I feel like a lot of Las Vegans know, and this is the phrase that was used to me, is that it's a place businesses go to die. So I was drawn to this neighborhood because when I first moved here, just by happenstance, I happened to move nearby on a walkable distance. And the whole area was developed in 1942 because of the basic magnesium plant. And that was refining magnesium that had been mined somewhere further north. And this was an important ingredient for bomb building during World War II. So it was a locally mined and locally refined necessity for the war effort. And so this whole neighborhood was built around the basic magnesium plant. And that's why like all the houses from that area are from 1942. It's very, very walkable. It's truly a neighborhood. And then it had this main drag.
And the street names around there invoke that time, don't they?
Exactly. I mean, there is Basic. That's one of the main throughways. There's also Pacific Street. But then a lot of the streets are named after like different ores and elements. There's like Gold Street and Tungsten Street and Utah Street, which I don't have an explanation for. But in general, it's different. Silver Street, there's lots. And yeah, the houses are basically built, I think, on 9 different floor plans that were all ordered from the Sears catalog. They often have redwood paneling. Isn't that funny?
Houses from Sears. Sure, why not?
Yeah, if you've seen one house, you've kind of seen them all. You can go see one of these historic homes actually at the Clark County Museum, which is out on Boulder Highway, if you don't want to come over to my house, David.
Oh, they're very cool.
But Water Street was the main drag. And that's where like all of the banks and the post office and any sort of gathering spaces were for the whole community that was working at Basic Magnesium. And then, of course, like, at that time, there wasn't much to Henderson. That was the start of Henderson. That's kind of why our city hall and like our city government is there. But there wasn't a lot else between downtown Las Vegas and downtown Henderson. And, post like the 1950s, it began a slow decline to abandonment, probably to like where you're much more familiar with it than me in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. And, Green Valley was developed and it really overshadowed that part of Henderson. So that I think it became fair to call it Old Town Henderson. That's what I and my people of my generation refer to the area where you live.
Or town site. Yeah. And, to be fair, it was still very a family-oriented neighborhood. A lot of those houses have only maybe had like 2 or 3 owners, but it lost that commercial district. There wasn't a place for people to walk to and gather.
So what is the draw to the area, and why are we looking at Water Street right now?
For me, it was the walkability that is still there. Kind of like your neighborhood, David. Like, I'm drawn to a neighborhood that has sidewalks, that has this community feel. And I loved that there is this total revival of the Water Street district. And there's so many things to walk to during the day and the evening on Water Street. I love the feeling of the central community. And one of the things that I really love there, if I'm going out on a weekend, it's like, there's no tourists there,
Yet.
This is an entertainment district that is truly just for us. It feels very special.
So we definitely saw lots of people who were clearly locals when you showed us around. But do you think tourists would appreciate being here too?
Yeah, I do think there's going to be more of a draw for people to come from across town, but also from out of town as well soon, because we kicked off our tour by talking to Wyndham, Wyndham Kinsey is an architect, and he's just sort of taken a particular interest in Water Street for like the same reasons I find it sort of beloved, that it's old, it's walkable, there's a real energy being rebuilt there. And so he's the one that opened up the Public Works coffee shop, and then he also opened up Azura Cucina right next door. And if you remember last year, that was named like the best new restaurant in Clark County. So that's huge, and that really made this little restaurant a destination. And he's got plans too to open up a new rooftop cocktail bar that he wants to. His goal is to make it one of the best in the world. So I think it's cool.
It's definitely a cutie pie space, and the food looked amazing.
Azura?
Yeah.
Yeah, the food is amazing. And then, of course, at night, the coffee shop now becomes a wine bar as well. Because Azura is always so crowded, you can always bop down the street. Oh, which also has a bottle shop in it, which the rest of Water Street doesn't have. You can go in and buy wine bottles there at any time.
Yeah. And also you get some really nice charcutes, which we were able to taste a little bit.
You get some good charcutes.
So, we got the tour from you, but I want you to give it to all of our listeners. So if someone new is coming in, say a local who hasn't really been to that part of town, or at least for a while, someone like me,
yeah,
where should they start? And also, what's new and what's still there from decades ago? So that's a lot of questions.
Well, of course, it starts at the time of day, right? So on one side of Water Street, you've got the Public Works coffee shop. You can stop and get your cup of coffee. It's a good spot to work. On the other end, though, we have Chef Fleming's Bake Shop, too, which has some really amazing pastry. I went in there recently and got a cinnamon bun, and it didn't have the things I normally want out of my cinnamon buns. I like big, yeasty cream cheese covered, and this was like thin, flaky glaze covered, and it was still amazing. It was an amazing experience of a cinnamon bun. I also got a custard Danish. You can get like custom cakes and pies there too. So those are great daytime stops. Nighttime is when it really comes alive.
He's been there for a while.
Oh, yeah. He's been there for a while. Everyone was super nice, and like just a long but quick line, which is always what you want to look for at a bake shop, I think. But I really like starting sort of at the Azura end and then walking all the way down to Juan's Flaming Fajitas and just sort of like dipping in and experiencing the street along the way, which is what we did.
Yeah, heading back towards Lake Mead.
Yes, there's plenty of parking. Of course, I walked there. One of the things that I would like to see improve on Water Street is I would like to see more of a diversity of places to eat. There's some pizza places. There's a lot of bar food. There's the sushi and tapas place, which I have not been to. And you haven't been there either, have you, Figler?
No, but it got a definite thumbs up from our former newsletter editor, Scott Dickensheets.
I was going to say, it was one of Scott's favorites, absolutely. But I would like to see more food. Definitely on a weekend, this is a drinking place.
Well, there was that barbecue spot that you took us to.
Exactly. So we went to Biscuits and Bourbon. And actually, my favorite thing to do there is to actually get takeout at Biscuits and Bourbon. And then right next door and sort of conjoined is Mojave Brewing. I really love Mojave Brewing. It is one of our local breweries. I think their beer is really excellent. And they're in a space that is a refurbished bank. And I love the reuse of these historical spaces. It's also a bar that welcomes kids, which I think is honestly an important thing so families can go out. But families have to go into what was the bank vault. So you can't just abandon your kids, but you still can go out like with your friends and your kids. And you have a little like play space for that, which I think is really nice. Vibes are always immaculate there.
I did like that there was a pinball machine in there. That's like a favorite for me.
Several.
In the vault, yeah.
And like cozy seating. And I always like that like, parents want to do fun things too. Also, they've got an outdoor part and there's always cute dogs there. So I just really like the vibes there. And you can kind of roll up to Biscuits and Bourbon has an outdoor counter out the back there. So you can like get food there and take it over to Mojave. And I think it's just like also a perfect sort of afternoon drink spot because of the indoor-outdoor qualities of it. And then right across the street, you've got Love Lady, which is another really well-known local brewer. And what I really love about that space, also in a reused old building, is that they have a tabletop shuffleboard. So I taught Rob Katzelreese, newsletter editor, and our producer, Myron, how to play tabletop shuffleboard. And I just think that that's always such a nice thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I do love the idea of repurposing those old buildings. I was banking on my way home. If I need to stop off a bank, it was the old Bank of America building. It was a beautiful old building. And now it's a beautiful old building slash new restaurant slash brew pub. And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There are other places to drink, though, on that street, including
Plenty.
one fairly notorious spot.
Yeah, the Gold Mine, one of our classic dive bars. It wasn't on the list of our top 5 oldest bars, but it is one of the top 10 oldest bars in all of Clark County. I love what you said when you walked inside, David. You said it reminded you of rural Nevada bars. Why was that?
There was just sort of a vibe where everyone knew each other, it seemed, and it was a little narrow. It was a little too well lit in places, but also there was a kind of like subtle darkness in the shadows. It was, and they had a stage set up for music, and you can imagine that some local talent would pop up there any minute. And this to me is kind of the fun experience of going to places like Beatty or Elko, is that there is the kind of the hang bar where everyone goes, and it's not too fancy, but it gets the job done.
Yeah, it has very like pioneer bar style. It is sort of like just a square long building. I was founded in the 50s. It's got music indoors. It's also got a great outdoor patio space that also has music. One of the wildest nights I've seen, it was a Grateful Dead cover band. There was some drugs and dancing on the street. It was crazy. And we decided to get some pudding shots. I mean, they have surprisingly good alcohol there. Rob pointed out some really top shelf tequila.
And top shelf whiskey, too.
But I noticed a sign for Jello shots and thought, it's been a minute. And then I saw another little sign that said, ask about our pudding shots. And so I asked the bartender if she had pudding shots, and she sort of like looked to the back and then like nodded at me, and she was like, how many? And I was like, 3. And she just like signaled 3 to someone in the back. And then she came out with these 3 little cups filled with like white fluff and little ice cream spoons in it. And I said, do I shoot it or do I scoop it? And she went, 2 scoops. And I was like, 2 scoops? She's like, 2 scoops. So I turned around. It was an unidentifiable flavor. I think I figured out what it is, but what did you think it was?
It very much looked like, what if Jello shots were made of eggnog?
It was more liquidy, right? Like Jello shots are extra firm, like a Jello jiggler, and it was like goopy.
What if flan was alcoholic?
Yeah. I think it might have been Irish cream flavored, but I could not guess that at the time for sure. Still enjoyed the experience. Love the Gold Mine. It's just a classic bar with a little bit of a wild side.
We've got some more places to talk about, but if someone's going to these kind of like, crowded, vibrant places up and down Water Street, how much cash do you think they should bring with them?
I mean, it depends on if you're going to hit the local casinos, right? Like all the bars took card. And we did see, too, a couple wine bars that have just opened or are about to open. We don't have any opinions on those because we haven't been yet. But that's like the new way from the dive bar to the brewery. But we did bop into there's 3 locals casinos on Water Street, which are also quite beloved. And so definitely you should like bring some cash along if you're going to gamble there for sure.
Yeah, and there's places to eat in the casinos. One had a diner in it, as I recall, that looked completely adorable.
Yeah, the diner Rob said was a really good burger and milkshake place. That was in the back of the Rainbow. And you know what I love? When the whole team walked into the Rainbow Casino, Rob looked around at this like crazy, busy, loud, lights flickering place and said, see, this is how Vegas is supposed to be.
Right.
And I sort of love that.
Well, it was definitely crowded. Some of the old school casinos had very low ceilings, which was a little disorienting.
Yeah.
But that Rainbow Casino has been there forever.
That one and Emerald Isle across the way, going into both of those on the same night really reminded me that when I do have visitors, I should really be taking them here because that does feel like this super authentic experience. Free food was raining from the skies, David. Do you remember that the Rainbow was giving away free ice cream at 8 p.m. and then Emerald Isle had free pizza at 6 p.m. too? And I think I told you I'd been there once before and they gave me a free Blue Bunny ice cream bar. They just passed it out to you at the slot machine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, truly locals casinos, which also kind of a little bit reminds me of how the rurals approach it. And, gambling's not for everybody, but it is a third place for a lot of people in Las Vegas, and especially people out in the periphery. so far away from the Strip. I mean, can you maybe sum up what really sets these places apart from the spots that you might be more familiar with in Las Vegas or even on the Strip?
They're just not polished. I mean, you kind of know I love a rough and ready space. I love an older space. There's something deeply authentic about them. They really are locals casinos. It's generally an older crowd, but also the Rainbow has this massive undulating bar in the center. And I could absolutely see taking a friend there I'd sit at the bar for a drink and just sort of taking in, I don't know, there was just this sort of, because it's local, there was this sort of vibrancy and joy there that I don't necessarily feel in our Strip or downtown casinos. It was just like a cool slice of the past.
Yeah, and most of those drinks, like any good dive bar or dive casino bar, the best ones are going to be 2 ingredients or less.
Yep.
And the price points are, not like the Strip. You're not paying $25 for any cocktail on Water Street. And that's a good thing.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
And they're quite beautiful in their own way, these casinos. And if you're lucky, someone's going to come by and give you a free Blue Bunny ice cream bar.
Sure, why not? I think it would be remiss if we didn't talk about the giant arena that showed up on Water Street. And I remember when they were building it, but that's, I think, the first time I drove by and saw just how massive it was. And it was also packed with people. We walked through it.
Yeah, that stadium is the America First Center. Kind of an unfortunate name at this point. But that is the practice stadium for the Silver Knights, which is, I actually don't know what the minor leagues are called for hockey here. But also there's tons of hockey classes and camps and stuff there. And actually what's cool about it is on the second level, there is a bar called Mackenzie River, as well as another Public Works coffee shop.
Yeah.
And there are 2 ice arenas, and you can look down into them and see the different teams practicing there. And I actually sort of love that.
There seem to be a lot of parents drinking some wine, eating some appies, and watching their kids skate around. It was so cute. It was
really cute. It was so cute.
Yeah.
And we also saw there was that Taekwondo studio that was popping off, as was the bar immediately next to it, because the kids were in the Taekwondo studio and the parents were in the bar next door, which I also thought was kind of sweet and hilarious.
Yeah.
That bar, Mackenzie River, also has an outdoor patio that's on the second level, and it's got some incredible people watching down to Water Street and some great views all the way down to the Strip and the sunsets. It's a good place to have a beer.
Yeah, definitely. And it's right next to the new City Hall, or newish now.
Yeah, the plaza.
Which had some art show that they were talking about, but we weren't able to go in because it was after hours. But it looked like a great endeavor.
Yes, it was an art show of people who have public art throughout Henderson. And they actually recently produced a map of all the public art to see. And they did smaller pieces for the gallery. Also, right there is the Water Street Plaza, too. And there is a festival or a free event there every week and weekend. People should really get on the City of Henderson mailing list. They did an F1 watch party. There was an Indigenous festival a couple weekends ago. There's going to be a holiday market, and it's all free. It's kind of amazing how much programming they do there.
Yeah, I really feel like the Chamber of Commerce of Henderson should really be fanning on us right now. But we did love the experience. I like the little markers that are up and down that street that talk about the history.
Historical
and then
markers.
You were able to augment that. There was even a little mini but mighty farmer's market that was going off at night when we were walking by. Really, really cool. So, Sarah, let me finish it up this way. Who is currently investing in Water Street, and what sort of crowd do you think they are trying to draw in?
I think Water Street is still trying to figure itself out. One thing I like about it is when you walk to one end and the other on a weekend, you might hear 4 different live bands playing. And the street just feels very vibrant with people. It's sort of this intimate, walkable district. We don't really have, we've got Fremont Street, but that's not just for us. You know what I mean? But there is this blend of the reuse of old spaces and opening of restaurants and the building of new spaces with mixed success. There's that massive structure in the middle of the street that is stuck in bankruptcy that's supposed to be, housing. It's apartments with retail on the first level. And it would be great to see more housing down there, which means more people walking around.
We kind of joke that unfinished space is Water Street's Fountain Blue.
It totally feels like it,
idle
right?
for 16 years on the Strip, right? Yeah.
The Pass has a new luxury hotel connected to it, the Pass Casino, so we'll see how that does. But that sort of forced the closure of the Motel 6, allegedly. It doesn't quite know who it's for or where it is. We're seeing more high-end spaces open up where I'd also just like to see more stuff for on the daily. A grocery store would be nice, a yoga studio, just some casual, more different types of food options. And there's still a lot of undeveloped area too. So I think it's figuring it out.
Well, Sarah Lohman, thank you so much on behalf of the team for showing us your old Henderson and Water Street.
I loved showing you around, and I always love it when I can sort of surprise and delight you, Dayvid Figler, because you know so much about the Valley. I got to show you my part of the Valley.
Loved it. And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, go tell a friend. That's how this podcasting stuff works. You could also rate our show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky.